Victor deck profile. So, the starter is Extreme Battler Kabutron. Because of, you're going to be standing all your rearguards at the same time because I focused my deck on Favorite Champ. So, Rune Bowl is not that great because his skills just doesn't go off. So, Kabutron is better. He's after he boosts. Counterblast 1, Shove It to Soul is GB1. And then you can stand a rearguard and give it plus 2k. Very nice for like your first stride. Yeah. Then for grade 3s, it's just a total of 7 Victors. Just like overall, because of the fact that you pretty much never really use the on-stride skill, it does not matter which one you ride. So just 7 Victors. Preferably, I'll be able to swap one of him out for a 4th of him because of he's a pretty good rear guard. But overall, it doesn't entirely matter. Just 7 Victors. So the OG Victor, he's got GB2, Vanguard only. When he attacks, he gets 5k, and then stand rear guard and it gets 5k. I have never used that skill, ever, because it's you stride or die. On stride, he gives red text skill to Vanguard, which is once per turn when the Vanguard swings, or actually, no, yeah, I believe the way it's worded. No, actually, if you have a restanding Vanguard, by the way it's worded, it looks like you can actually use the skill on the second attack of the Vanguard as long as you didn't use the first attack. Again, I've never used the on-stride skills. But it's Counterblast 1 when the Vanguard swings, stand a rear guard, give it plus 5k. So it's not terrible. For this one, his on-stride skill is it's a once per turn. So yeah, this one, you can't use the second one even if you didn't use the first attack of a restanding Vanguard. But it is Soul Blast 1, choose a rear guard with Rush and stand the column. So he doesn't give power, but he can stand a booster. He gives power, but can only stand one thing. But primarily, your stuff is going to get power on standing anyways, so he's overall has the better on stride skill. But again, you never use any of them really. His GB2 is why he's the better rear guard. So it's Rush. When he stands, you essentially give 2k to your entire front row. So it can get you a lot of power. But again, just 7 Victors. It doesn't really matter all that much. Next up for grade 2s, 4 copies of Extreme Battler Sazanda. Still one of the best cards. Nova Grappler. It's on attack, or on stand, plus 5k. Just the more you stand him, the stronger he gets. He just gets very beefy. Really great card. He doesn't have Rush. However, you can give him a Rush ability for if you're using the on-stride skill of the new Victor. Next up is 4 copies of Better Sazanda. Extreme Battler Sever Temper. Just 1 short for my playset of hot stamps. I'm honestly upset about that. Sever Temper, he actually has a Rush ability, so the on-stride skill of the newer grade 3 Victor can target him without any help from like Maliaki giving him Rush. So his Rush skill is essentially GB2, your Vanguard must be Victor, Sazanda skill, on stand plus 5k. So these just are really nice for power gaining. A lot of power gaining. You can hit for pretty... I've reached so, like, Neo-Nectar sized numbers with this deck. And then he has a GB1 skill that I have very rarely used. And it's when you drive check a grade 3, you retire an opponent's rear guard that has power less than his power, which will probably be any rear guard, because he'll probably have at least 5k on him, putting him at 14. So just, it'll retire anything if you drive check a grade 3. But he's primarily just there for the power gain, because this deck loves power gain. Then for the last grade 2, 4 copies of Cool Hank. I've seen other people use Arbor for this because of the fact that Cool Hank requires a booster. However, I find needing a booster is not that bad of a problem in this deck. And Arbor Soul Blast, for an extra cost, as well as Arbor can only use his restanding skill the turn he's placed. So I like Cool Hank just because he can be used any turn I want to use him on. He can only use it the first attack that he attacks a Vanguard, whether he's boosted, whether you don't use the skill or not. He can only use it the one time. So he's, when boosted and attacking a Vanguard, counterblast 1, stand a rear guard, give it plus 5k. So if your other rear guard is like a Sazanda or Sever Temper, you stand it, and it'll essentially gain plus 10k, because 5k off of that and 5k off of itself. Get you pretty big numbers. Yeah. Next up, for grade 1s, 4 copies of Extreme Battler Maliaki. He is such a great grade 1. When your Vanguard, GB1 continuous, when your Vanguard is Victor, he gives red text skill to the thing in front of it. That is a rush skill. So as long as your Vanguard's Victor, the grade 2 in front of him, even if it's like Cool Hank or Sazanda, will still have the rush ability for if you're using the on-stride skill of the new Victor. And that rush ability is when it stands, it gives itself a red text ability, and that does stack, which is why this card's so great. And that is on attack, choose 2 units and give them plus 4k. If you have like 2 copies of that red text skill, you don't have to target the same 2 things. You can even target up to 4 things. Because you could be like, oh, the first skill gives 4k to himself and Vanguard. The other one gives it to like his booster and the other grade 2. Although you can't, like, because of each one targets 2 separate ones, you can't like stack 3 4Ks on one dude if he's got the red text skill twice. But the red text skill just keeps stacking and stacking every time the thing in front of him stands. He does not have to stand. Only the thing in front of it does. Then I run 4 copies of Extreme Battler Erishid because of Stride Fodder. This deck, like, the old Victor can stand something for GB2 if you're not striding. But if you're not striding, you're going to have a really hard time, so you're going to need Stride Fodder. Next for the PGs, 4 Lady Cyclone. This deck is very much resource management. You need to make sure you have resources to be able to do things for a lot of the times. Counterblast being one of the bigger ones. Of course, now that we have the new Victor on-stride skill being Soul Blast, that's 1 less Counterblast if you decided to use that in the first place. But it's very nice. There's not really any other better PG anyways. It's the Countercharge PG. Lastly, for grade 1s, I run the 2 copies of Furious Puncher. I considered running I don't even remember what the name was. Extreme Battler, like the name similar to Baguette. I don't remember what it's called. That was like Rush. It gets red text after it boosts. Move to Soul Stand a thing.
Oh, Banquet.
Banquet, yeah, that thing. But overall, this guy's better. He's got an act skill that you never need to use because of it was designed to work with certain skills given to some of the cards that came out in his set. but those skills are bad, so you don't use it. But it's because it's act GB1, retire himself, stand a rear guard. The thing is, it's an act, so it's main phase stand, and you use none of the skills that rest your things during main phase because they're bad. I mean, you can use them to like get power on Sever Temper earlier, but they're not worth it to run in the deck, so that skill is not useful. What is useful is his rush skill. When he stands, he gives something else plus 5k. So you just keep building on the 5ks whenever you stand things. For trigger lineup, 4 copies of Extreme Grappler Break Pass, the Victor crit. So of course when your Vanguard swings, Shepherd Soul, 5k to Vanguard, and draw a card. Pretty nice because like my winning image with this deck is favorite champ, so I like to have hand, but I still like to have a board swing within power, so he's really nice for that because he'll have a board so you can boost your 9ks with it, like a Cool Hank, and then your Vanguard swings Shepherd to Soul, so he's really nice. Crits are also overall pretty good. However, what's better than crits in this deck? Draw triggers. I run 8 draw triggers because you want a hand for favorite champ Victor. The draw triggers are really nice. I've done so many games where like I've damage checked my first 3 damage or draw triggers. It's really nice, can get you a hand. This deck, as I said before, has a resource problem. One of the biggest resource problems is hand, because if you use the hand, it's difficult to get your hand back. So draw triggers are really nice. It doesn't matter what draw trigger you use, because we don't have a Margot clone in this deck. But overall it doesn't matter, because you want to keep them in your hand for discard anyways. But if you really need to, you can call them for boosting. But yeah, 8 draw triggers. Very useful. And then lastly, for Extreme Battler Gun Seal, I mean, Shiny Heal, you run the G-Guard. I don't use its skill that often, but it is the one that if you G-Guard into his specific G-Guard, you can Soul Blast 1 and Countercharge 1 if you have 1 or less face-up damage. So again, resource management, like your heal and G-Guards and PG, that's pretty much all you have for resource management. So yeah, he's really good. For strides, start off with 4 copies, Meteor Kaiser Victor.
Is that SP?
It's totally SP. Look at it. I love it. So it's got an act ability, Persona Flip 1, and it gets 2 red text skills. One is on hit, stand something, give it plus 5k. The other is GB3, on attack, stand something, give it plus 5k. So he has the potential to get 2 things standing with a plus 5k, but overall, first stride, you're standing nothing. So you're either going to use an on-stride skill in the first stride, or you're just not really going to do too much standing off of the stride attacking, because primarily your opponent's not going to let it hit, but if it does, kudos. And if you G-guarded first, you'll then have the GB3 to stand something. It's currently just kind of the best first stride, because it has potential to stand, and no counterblast cost. Next up, the winning image. Favorite champ Victor. He's just really great. The goal is to be able to stride into him as early as possible. I mean, technically you could drop him as first stride if you G-guarded, but then you wouldn't be able to use his skill to any profit. So it's a GB2 skill. At the end of his battle, you have to counterblast 2 and discard a card. He does a lot of discarding. That's what the 8 draw triggers are for. And this is not a once per turn ability, keep in mind, because You'll see why later in the effect. So when you pay the cost at the end of his battle, and then you stand any number of your rear guards equal to the face-up cards in G zone. So that's why you can't really make a lot of use off of him for a first stride or anything after a single G guard, because that'll only be one thing to stand. Then if you stood at least 3 things, then you can discard 3, stand favorite champ, countercharge 1, and he gets drive -2. But again, it's not a once per turn ability. So as long as you have a giant hand and a lot of countercharged damage at the beginning of the turn, you can just keep swinging with board. Your board getting 5k every time it stands, and the red text and Maliaki stacking every time everything stands. Gets a lot of numbers, a lot of attacks off, but you need a lot of hand to do it. And you need at least 3 things face up in G zone. It works best if you have 4, because then you're standing both boosters of the rear guards. But if it's Maliaki for one of the boosting rear guards, you don't need to stand it because it's still giving power to the thing in front of it off of the rush skill. He's just really nice. 1 copy of the GD8. I have so far never gone into him. He's not bad. I like him most for just the concept. Like what his skill does is Counterblast 1. When he attacks, you may stand all your rear guards, and then they get red text till end turn. When this card rests, stand this unit. And then he gets 5k for each of your rear guards. So I just love the concept of like, oh, we have so many things that can just stand full board. So what can we do to be a better finisher than that? I know, stand the board twice. I just love the concept of this card. I've never gone into him though, because primarily you either win on favorite champ turn, or after favorite champ, you have nothing left to survive, so you're dead. But he's still there for possibility. Lastly, for strides, I run 4 copies of Meteor Kaiser Vic Plasma. He's a restanding Vanguard, which is really nice. If you end up needing to go into him, you have the on-stride skills to stand your rear guards. He's Act, Counterblast 2, Persona Flip 1. Then he gets, let's see. Yeah, if the number of cards face up in your G zone is 2 or more, he then gets the drive -1 and red text after he swings, discard 2, restand him. So restanding Vanguard, if you have no cards in hand, you can discard your drive check to stand him, so you can guarantee pay the cost for his restand, as long as you can pay the cost to get the red tech skill to begin with. He's very nice if you don't have enough hand for favorite champ, and or you don't really have a board to stand much. So he's very nice. Also, if you have enough counterblast and you're gonna be very ballsy, you have nothing to work with anyways, you can, since his skill is not GB restricted for the cost and not once per turn, you can counterblast 2, flip 1, nothing happens, counterblast another 2, flip another 1, and then he gets the restand ability. So that's a possibility if you really need it. I've never actually done that myself, but you can first stride him if the situation calls for it. I've never had that time. But he's still just really good stride. Then I don't run Seabreeze because even though you kind of want to stride, I don't feel Seabreeze is that necessary because I don't really have anything that flips anything, so I can't flip Seabreeze, and I don't feel it's really worth it in this deck. So the other 6 cards in the G zone are all G guards. I run 1 copy of Meteor Kaiser Gundreed. the Fighters Collection G-Guard. So he's on place, GB1, flip up a G-Guard, and you give red text skill to Vanguard that if an attack doesn't hit, countercharge 1. So that red text skill lasts for the entire turn, so you can keep countercharging, which is very nice, but he doesn't gain any power. As it stands right now, Nova Grappler G-Guards don't get shield, so they're pretty much all just resource management, which, I mean, the deck needed, but it makes it a little more difficult to guard, which is why it's nice to have a lot of cards in hand. Then I run 2 copies of Kaiser Unir. He is, when you G-Guard into him, if you have no face-up damage, countercharge 2, he gets 5k shield. And if you have no cards in Soul charge 2, he gets 5k shield. This deck doesn't Soul Blast much, so you're probably never going to get that 5k off. But if you really are running low on Counter Blast, you can go into him. He's a 20k shield with countercharge 2. Again, you don't get much shield off of these G-Guards, which is a big problem with Nova Grapplers, but it's still not terrible. 1 copy of Righteous Superhuman Blue Prison, the original Fighters Collection one, which is essentially if you have equal or more damage than your opponent, so essentially if a heal trigger would proc, he gets 5k shield. So and if you're losing, he gets 5k shield, which is, it's not that great, but it's a free shield gain compared to some of the to all the others, so I still run it at 1 of. And lastly, I run 2 Cray Elemental G-Guards, 1 Screw, and 1 Ractome. Because of you're getting a lot of draw triggers off, you're getting a lot of cards in hand. Ractome will allow you to on place discard a card and draw a different card, so you can cycle out your draw triggers that you drove checked for something better. And Screw, if you have something face up in the G zone, you can discard a card to give him 10k shield. So he's your biggest shield out of your G-Guards, and you have a decent sized hand with the 8 draw triggers, so you're going to have something that you can discard. So he's your best shield. It's kind of disappointing that that's really all you have in the deck, but what are you gonna do? Gotta wait for that Stargate booster. And yeah, that's my deck profile. Ciao.